Hi y'all, this is your video tutorial over solving fractional equations. If you go to page 5 of your notes packet, this is where that page is. Okay, so a fractional equation is something that has a denominator. So we're working with fractional equations or rational equations. So far, all we've done is simplify them by addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. Now we're actually solving. These are no longer expressions. They actually have an equal sign, so they're an equation. So in order to solve these, our goal is going to be to find a common denominator and set the numerators equal. So in example 1 here, let's pretend that we were multiplying or dividing this. You would need to have a common denominator. And to get that common denominator, you would need to have both factors multiplied together. So your common denominator here would be x minus 4 times x plus 1. And it's kind of the same idea as what we did before, where you had to multiply by the missing factor. So on your first fraction, you have x minus 4 and x minus 3 on the top. So the thing that's missing here is that factor of x plus 1. So I'm going to multiply by x plus 1 on the top and the bottom. And then I've got equals on the other side. Oops, I forgot to put a 1. On the other side, the thing that I'm missing is the factor of x minus 4. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by x minus 4 as well. Okay, so now they have the same denominator. I know that they're written in a different order. You have x minus 4 in the front on one and x plus 1 in the front on the other one. That's okay. You can multiply in any order that you want. So now that they have the same denominator, this means that the numerators must be equal. So you're going to basically eliminate the denominators, like forget that they're there, and you're going to set the numerators equal to each other. So you're going to set x minus 3 times x plus 1 equal to x minus 1 times x minus 4. The reason you can do this, think about if you've got like, I don't know, if you have x over 2 equals y over 2, in order for that statement to be true, x has to be equal to y because they already have the same thing on the bottom. The only thing that could change would be the top. So if they're the same on the bottom, you can just set the top equal to each other. So now this is pretty much just a matter of multiplying everything out and solving the equation. So I'm going to do box method twice. If you like to FOIL, you can do that as well. I'm going to multiply this together. So we've got x minus 3 times x plus 1. And I'm going to multiply this together. So we've got x minus 1 times x minus 4. Just write that in red. X minus 1, x minus 4. Okay, so in this one, x times x gets you x squared. Negative 3 times x gets you negative 3x. X times 1 is just x, and 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. So you're going to combine your like terms. So these two are like terms. So we've got x squared. Negative 3x plus x gets you negative 2x minus 3. Over here, got x squared, negative x, negative 4x, and 4. Then you're going to combine your like terms here. Negative 4x minus x is negative 5x. So we've got this. So my goal here is to get x by itself. So you want to get everything on one side. So I'm going to subtract x squared from both sides. So now I've got negative 2x minus 3 equals negative 5x plus 4. Doesn't matter what you move at this point. If you want to move a 5x or a 2x or a negative 3, negative 4, it doesn't matter. I am going to, what do I want to do? Let's say add 5x to both sides. So these are gone, and you've got 4 on this side. Negative 2x plus 5x is the same thing as 5x minus 2x, gives you 3x. Okay. I want to get the 3x by itself, so I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I've got 3x equals 7. Divide by 3 on both sides, and I've got x equals 7 over 3. Whoops. Okay. So that is the solution to the problem. If you think about where it says here, it says extraneous solutions, discard any extraneous solutions, that's going back to talking about our domain restriction. So for this problem, when you're looking at the common denominator, looking at this original denominator here, we would exclude positive 4 and negative 1 from our domain. The answer that we got, 7 over 3, is neither of those numbers. So that answer is a valid solution, and that would be your answer to number 1. Okay, let's take a look at example 2. So we have a quadratic in this one. Whenever you see a quadratic, so here's your quadratic, I want to factor that. So let's factor I need 2 numbers that are going to multiply to negative 6 and add or subtract to 1. So I know 2 and 3, and in order for me to get a positive 1, I need the 2 to be negative. 3 minus 2 gets you 1. 3 times negative 2 gets you negative 6. So this is going to be x minus 2 times x plus 3. So this is our common denominator, okay? We actually have to add in this problem. There's an addition sign here, so that's going to be an additional step as well, okay? So on the first fraction, the factor that I'm missing is that x plus 3. So I'm going to multiply by x plus 3 on the top and the bottom. On the second fraction, I am missing the x minus 2. So that's what I'm going to multiply by on the top and the bottom. After the equal sign, the fraction that has the 10 on the top already has the common denominator, so I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to leave it alone. Okay, now I'm going to distribute. So I've got x squared plus 3x plus 2x minus 4 all over x minus 2 times x plus 3. Then I'm going to combine my like terms. So I've got a 3x and a 2x here I can combine. So I've got x squared plus 5x minus 4. Sorry, I have pet birds if you can hear them in the background. They're very talkative. Okay, so at this point, I have the same denominators on both sides of the equal sign. So I can get rid of those denominators and I can set the numerators equal to each other. If you're struggling and you think that I'm going too fast, pause the video at any time and write out a couple of steps and then replay it and listen to me explain it. If you feel like I'm going too fast, you can always pause the video, okay? So here I need to get my 10, this 10 that's here, I need to get it to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. So I've got x squared plus 5x minus 14 equals 0. At this point, I can factor again to find my solutions. So I'm going to factor, I've got negative 14 on the top, and I've got 5 on the bottom. Two numbers that multiply to negative 14 and add to 5 are 7 and negative 2. 7 minus 2 gets you 5. 7 times negative 2 gets you negative 14. So this is now x plus 7 times x minus 2 equals 0. If you remember, we talked about zero product property. I can take both of my factors in parentheses and I can individually set them equal to 0. Essentially, your answer is just going to be minus 7 and 2 because all you're doing is flipping the signs, but this is why you're flipping the signs. So our two answers are positive 2 and negative 7. Let's look at if any of those violate the domain restriction. So your common denominator that I just circled in yellow is x minus 2 times x plus 3. So our domain restrictions would be x cannot equal positive 2 and x cannot equal negative 3. If you look at your two solutions, notice that we've got a positive 2 and we restricted 2 from our domain. So the answer x equals 2 is not a valid answer. I'm going to cross it off. Even though I get it as a solution, it's been restricted from the domain, so it can't be an answer. So your final answer here is just the x equals negative 7. For number 3, we're going to have to do some factoring again. So the only term here that has a square is that x squared minus 1. This is one of those special cases that's a difference of squares. So this is going to factor into x plus 1 times x minus 1. If you're not comfortable with that, draw your eye. You're going to have a 1 at the top, negative 1 at the top, and you're going to have 0 at the bottom. So the two factors that give you that are 1 and negative 1, hence the factored form here. So this is also our common denominator. So on the first fraction, the factor that's missing is the x plus 1. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by x plus 1. On the second fraction, we already have that common denominator. That was the one that I factored, so I'm not going to do anything with the second fraction. On the third fraction, I am missing the factor of x minus 1. So I'm going to multiply that on the top and the bottom. Okay. Now, in order to multiply our first fraction together, I'm going to use box method. So I've got 3x minus 2 times x plus 1. 3x squared, negative 2x, 3x, negative 2. Combine your like terms here. So this gives me 3x squared plus x minus 2 over x minus 1, x plus 1. Second fraction, don't have to touch it. Third fraction, I'm going to do box method again. 3x plus 2, x minus 1. Combine those like terms. So you've got 3x squared minus x minus 2. Okay, so first fraction is alone. Second fraction and third fraction, we're going to combine those. So notice that you've got a positive 2 and you've got a negative 2. Those are going to cancel out, and you're just going to be left with 3x squared minus x. Okay, our denominators are the same, so we can get rid of them. So you've got 3x squared plus x minus 2 equals 3x squared minus x. So our goal here is going to be to get all those terms on the same side, okay? So it doesn't matter how you do this, I'm going to subtract 3x squared from both sides. So I've got x minus 2 is equal to negative x. I'm going to add x to both sides. So you've got 2x minus 2 equals 0. Add 2 to both sides. 2x is equal to 2. Divide both by 2, and you get x is equal to 1. Okay, So let's take a look at our domain restrictions here. So your common denominator, I'm going to circle it in yellow on this fraction, was x minus 1 times x plus 1. So flipping those signs, I can't have positive 1 or negative 1 as an answer. Notice that one of the answers that we got was positive 1. Since that was the only solution we got, and that was one of our restricted ones, this problem has no solution. Okay, no solution because the only answer that we found did not work. These next problems are practice problems, so at this point if you want to stop the video and you want to try to do these on your own and then come back to the video and see if you did them correctly, that's fine. Or if you're still struggling a little bit and you want to follow along and listen to me with the rest of them, that's fine too. Okay, so first step, I see a quadratic. I'm going to factor. So I need two numbers that are going to multiply to give me negative 15 and add or subtract to give me 2. So we've got 5 and negative 3. So I've got x plus 5, x minus 3. On the first fraction, I'm missing the factor of x plus 5, so I'm going to multiply by that on the top and the bottom. On the second fraction, I am missing x minus 3. On the third fraction, you don't have to do anything because it already has the common denominator that you want. Okay, so we're going to distribute this, and we're going to distribute this. So I've got x squared plus 5x. And I've got 7x minus 21. Now I'm going to combine the numerators, and remember that you've got a subtraction sign there, so you're going to want to use parentheses to remind yourself to distribute the negative sign. Okay, so we're going to distribute the negative. So I've got x squared plus 5x minus 7x plus 21. Now the signs are going to flip. When I combine my like terms, so the plus 5 minus 7x, you've got x squared minus 2x plus 21 equals 24. And your denominators on this one were the same, so you can go ahead and get rid of those denominators. Okay, so same thing we did for the other problem. I'm going to move this last term over, and I'm going to try to factor to find my solutions. Okay, so my goal is to factor things that multiply to negative 3 and add or subtract to negative 2. So 3 and 1 are the only factors of 3, and I'm going to need a negative 3 and a positive 1 in order to add to a negative 2. So you get x minus 3 times x plus 1 equals 0. Using that zero product property, you're going to set both of your factors equal to 0, or you can just flip your signs. So I get positive 3 as an answer, and I get negative 1 as an answer. Looking at domain restrictions, your original denominator was the, I'll circle it in yellow on this one, x minus 3 times x plus 5. So our domain restrictions would be x cannot equal 3 or negative 5. One of the answers that we got was 3. So I'm going to cross that one out. That's not a valid answer. So our only valid solution to this problem is that x is equal to negative 1. last problem. I know you're super excited. So I see a quadratic. Let's factor it. Two numbers that are going to multiply to give you -8 and add or subtract to give you 2. So let's do 4 and 2. And I'm going to do 4 minus 2 gives me 2. 4 times -2 gives me -8. So this is going to factor into x plus 4 times x minus 2. On our first fraction, the factor that's missing between those two is the x plus 4. So let's multiply by that on the top and the bottom. On the second fraction, the factor that's missing is the x minus 2. So let's multiply by that on the top and the bottom. The third fraction, leave it alone because it already has the common denominator. Okay, now you're going to distribute. So we've got x squared plus 4x. Multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything, so you get plus x minus 2. And they have the same denominator now. Since the denominators are the same, you can cancel them on both sides and combine your like terms here. So you get x squared plus 5x minus 2 equals 12. You're going to subtract 12 from both sides. And you're going to factor one more time to get your answers. So I need two numbers that are going to multiply to -14 and add to give me 5. I think we factored this one earlier. We have 7 and 2, and we're going to do 7 and -2 here. So you've got x plus 7 times x minus 2 is equal to 0. And you're going to set each of those factors equal to 0 and then solve for x. So we get -7 and +2. Looking at our original common denominator, circling it in yellow here, your domain restrictions would be that x cannot equal -4 or +2. One of the answers that we got was +2, so we're going to cross that one out, and the only answer we get is that x is equal to -7. All of these solutions that you're finding are, most of them probably are going to have one that doesn't work and one that does work. We're going to set the problems up that way for you, so you actually have to solve it all the way through in order to figure out what you're going to be getting rid of, okay? Sometimes you might have all the solutions work. Sometimes you may not. It just depends on the problem type, okay? If you have any questions, you can ask me when I get back tomorrow. You will have your quiz on Monday, and the quiz will include the multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting, and it will also include the solving fractional equations. So this video is a tutorial for that, and then when I get back on Friday, we will be doing practice on that as well, okay? All right, have a good class. Be good. Behave.